Hello, welcome. You are with Dr. Sushma Singh. Today, Unit 10 Social and Human Development. When the term development is mentioned, the immediate association one has is of wealth. When we ask people who are the developed nation, often the answer refers to countries such as the United States of America, Japan, Germany, and so on, the so-called developed nations. And as for what is development, again the association is with wealth, a lot of industries, everybody owning a car, good roads, skyscrapers, and so on. This association of wealth with development has struck the popular imagination, and therefore for a lot of people development means a lot of wealth. This idea of development goes back to the adoption of growth model to the achieve development, especially via newly emerging nation states that were trying to emulate the successes and riches of the wealthy or developed nations of the West. It has generally been agreed that economic growth and income levels are important, but more important is how well the resources of wealth are exploited for general well-being of human beings. Some countries have been successful in managing their growth to improve the human condition. However, there is no automatic link between economic growth and better human conditions. And if a link is seen, what one ponders, what are those conditions or policies that translate high income levels into human development? We will be addressing these and other questions related to the issue of human development in this unit on social and human development. This unit will begin with a discussion by analyzing the anecdotes of human development in the growth model of development which were adopted by many countries, and how these models failed to meet human development needs. We will then discuss what human development is and in what way it is holistic perspective as compared to the growth model. We will also examine the various factors and indices to measure human development. The Human Development Report prepared by UNDP, United Nations Development Program, will be examined and analyzed to see what the relative position of different countries are. If certain countries are lagging behind in achieving this human development potential, then it will be worthwhile to look into the conditions and policy issues that come in the way of human development. Our particular interest is India, but we will be looking at the Indian situation in the context of other nations and in the global perspective as well. Now let us start the next topic, growth model of economic development. In this section, we will talk about the dominant ideas and discourse of development which held sway and which continue to hold the imagination of people whenever there is a discussion on economic development. Before we go on to discuss some of the main features and principles and the leading thinkers of this model of development, let us look at the philosophical and conceptual lineages of the concept of development. Economic development or development is a term that economists, politicians, policymakers, academics, and lay people have usually used widely, so much that so that it became a household term in late 20th century. The concept, however, has been in existence in the West for centuries. Modernization, westernization, and especially industrialization are other terms people have used when discussing economic development. The word development is invariably associated with the idea of progress. The concept of progress, in turn, finds its roots in the concept of evolution, which had captured the imagination of scholars of the 19th century. For instance, when Auguste Comte talked about the progress of society, he visualized societies moving from the simple to complex and yet rational and scientific state. This also implied that one moved from a society dominated by a non-scientific culture module dominated by age-old transition to one where rationality and scientific spirit dominated. Thus, when newly independent nations of the post-colonial world strove to develop themselves, the idea that they needed to adopt modern rational ideas was very influential. Along with modernization, another concept that came to be closely associated was industrialization. The idea of progress, as we mentioned, was evolutionary and linear in its implications. Therefore, the countries which were not developed had to go through, even if they grafting infrastructures and such conditions are stage similar to that of those which were developed already. The developed countries had a predominant industrial base, and of course they all went through a history of the social process of industrialization. When we examine some of the theories of economic development which advocated growth in terms of incomes or heavy industries, they were very much influenced by the discourse of that time. Let us briefly look at some of these theories. By end of World War II, various countries were struggling to take their nations forward and progress the way the former colonizers' countries have progressed. A variety of theories were on offer around this period. The first one is linear stage growth theory. The idea of different stages of development, as we have mentioned, goes back to the idea of evolutionism, which finds echoes in Adam Smith and Karl Marx. Adam Smith first noted that every society goes through 4 stages, namely hunting, pastoral, agricultural, and manufacturing. According to Karl Marx, there are 4 stages through which every society must go, namely feudalism, capitalism, socialism, and communalism. Waltwell Rostow's stages of growth model of development is yet another addition to these ideas. The argument that the historical experience of the developed countries in transforming their agricultural subsistence societies to modern industrial giants may have important lessons for the developing countries led to the formation of the Rostow's stage theories. Here we want to close this lecture. We will discuss the next model in next lecture. Thanks for listening.